Miracle stories about Jesus are spread throughout the four Gospels. The raising of Lazarus from the dead is only found in John. The healing of the woman who for years had an issue of blood and is healed when she touches the hem of Jesus' garment is only found in Mark. And the restoring of the young boy to life and to his widowed mother is only found in Luke. But the story we hear today, the miracle story of the feeding of 5,000, is recounted by all four gospel writers. So it speaks to us of the importance of this story in the life of the church. And it's worth reflecting today on where Matthew places this story, because he juxtaposes the meal of Jesus for 5,000 with the meal of Herod for his friends and royal acquaintances. The gospel today opens with Jesus hearing of the death of John the Baptist. For just prior, the murdering of John the Baptist has been recounted. And Matthew tells us when Jesus heard of this death, he withdrew to be by himself in a quiet place to pray. And he had told us, Matthew, just a few chapters before, that when Jesus heard of the arrest of John the Baptist, he did the same thing. He withdrew to a quiet place to be alone and to pray. And it's not unthinkable to imagine then that Jesus is shaken by John's arrest and now John's death, and is led to think and to pray about his own upcoming arrest and his upcoming death, the giving of himself for the life of the world. At any rate, in Herod's banquet, only a select few are invited to his birthday party. People that he wants to influence. Herod feeds them out of his need to strengthen his grip on power, to strengthen control, to strengthen influence. Herod, like many in authority, is deeply insecure. He fears the crowd. He fears prophets. He fears he will lose his grip on power. And just like today, leaders can live in an unreal world, a world of illusion that they create around themselves. At the root of it, their deep insecurity and their fear. Jesus' banquet, according to Matthew, is much different. Jesus invites a multitude, a crowd so large they are really uncountable. He doesn't feed them out of his need for influence. He feeds them because of their needs. He has walked among them. He has healed them all afternoon, one after another. And he recognizes their deepest hungers. And so he feeds them, Matthew tells us, not out of fear, but out of compassion. He understands, grasps human need. He has no deep-seated insecurity, Jesus. The host here, Jesus, is secure. He's secure in the deepest love of God at the root of his being, a God who he has said he experiences over and over again as a loving God, using the term loving Father. Jesus lives in the real world. He understands the suffering of every human individual, and he seeks to feed their hunger with loaves and fish, yes, but feed their deeper hunger as well for security, that the multitude might know of God's deep love in their lives. It's an echo of what we heard in today's second reading from St. Paul. Absolutely nothing can separate us from the love of God. Absolutely nothing. It's a rich story, and perhaps that's why all four gospel writers wrote it, and why the church continues to need to hear it over and over and over again. The deepest love of God is not new. The story reflects back to Moses leading the people wandering in the desert, and God's deepest love feeding them with manna from heaven and with quail every day, morning and evening. And Jesus is the new Moses, and 12 baskets are collected after he's done feeding them, because it reflects back to the 12 tribes of Israel wandering around the desert. There is enough for all. But it's also a story that looks forward to us today. For the church is offered this meal of Jesus to feed our human hungers. The 12 baskets are the 12 apostles on which the church has been founded. And we are invited to trust not in what we can manufacture, not in what we can come up with for ourselves, not in our own powers to orchestrate different things, but we are invited to trust in the deepest love of God for us. That is what we ought to experience at this meal. And because it has such a richness, perhaps that's why so many have found it so difficult when the churches were locked, not being able to feed here, because it renews in us the deepest love of God for us. And we had to find other ways, other forms of silence or prayer perhaps, to experience God's love. But it also reminds us too, since it's a meal for the multitude, that no one of us should hold back from approaching this meal. No one of us. It is not, as Pope Francis has said often, a prize for the perfect. No, it's a powerful medicine and a nourishment for the weak. And if we think of the Last Supper and the 12 people that Jesus first shared this meal with, they weren't prized people, you know. I mean, Judas ate and then left to go betray him. And the rest, to a man, all abandoned him. So this is not a meal for the perfect. It's a meal for the broken disciples. It's a meal for the multitude who are in need. St. Ambrose said the same thing as Pope Francis centuries before, when he said that this is the blood of Jesus shed, poured out for all, for the forgiveness of sins. And Ambrose says, I who sin often then should receive this, because I need the frequent remedy for my soul. I need the frequent reminder of God's deepest love for us. So let's be grateful we're able to share this meal again, and let no one of us hold back from coming forward thinking we are unworthy. We are unworthy. All of us, every last one of us is unworthy, but it's a gift. It's a tremendous gift of God's deepest love for us. And as it has fed multitudes throughout the centuries, may it feed multitudes today.